we can see some analysis. Okay, so the genius of silence, the code is in session, lies partially in the hands of the of whomever it was long time ago in a galaxy or all around us that came with the idea of mock trial. It was a mock trial. However, through the mock trial, Vijoy Tendulkar satirizes the society, especially the male-dominated society. The purpose of the mock trial is to use. দেখা যাচ্ছে?
জি স্যার।
Okay. So, so says any number of laws or academic website developed in the concept. Okay, and the mock part of the process is not intended pejoratively, but is rather simply a term used to denote the difference between an actual courtroom proceeding and one that is not sanctioned to carry out the conclusion or the verdict. And there is the official difference when used for the purpose of literary exploration. However, we all know that mock really means. Actually, it is a mock trial. However, through the mock trial, the drama satirizes the society, the male-dominated society. And such in the case in Silence, the Court is in session, and such is the genius of the way it uses the more official status of the mock trial. And technically speaking, Leela Benare, who is facing charges, fantaside, to be precise, in the mock trial, who is comprises the action of the play. In the reality of an audience watching the performance on a stage, however, it is a legal system itself who sits in the defender chair as this mock trial becomes a mockery of the actual trial. So through the trial system, Vijoy Tendulkar also satirizes the court system of the society. At nearly every stage of the mock trial, the actual justice system is mocked mercilessly. So from the beginning to the end, the justice system or the legal system of the society was mercilessly criticized and mocked. The prosecutor is also the defense attorney. Okay, so everywhere you see the mockery that the justice system of the society, and the judge becomes a witness for the prosecution. At the in one stage, we see that the judge himself asked to employ himself as the witness of the court. And of course, the behavior of Leela Benare is actually on trial with the fictional construction of her being a baby killer existing in much the same way that a very convenient gun or bag of cocaine found at the scene is a means of getting someone into the courtroom when genuine evidence simply isn't enough. Okay, so the evidence they have put, that is not exactly, but however, through the evidence, mock evidence, the punishment goes to Leela Benare. The true astonishing achievement of the play, it has been translated into more than a dozen languages. We will not read that. Okay, so the symbol and the motif of the drama, you see the locked door. The locked door symbolizes at the mock trial begins to shift from the fictional to the real and zero in on a specific related to Benares' life. It goes increasingly anxious, finally reaching a breaking point at this intrusion into reality. So from the mock trial, the drama enters into the reality. So intrusion in the reality. And Benarli urgently tries to flee, but discovers to her horror that the only exit is a door that has been locked from the outside. That is also symbolically present, that the women in the society are locked from outside by the male-dominated society. The door becomes symbolic of a larger inability to escape the persecution of the judgment. So whenever a female commits a crime, then there is an ability, society makes a fence that the female cannot escape the judgment, and traditionally conservative society represented by the rest of the groups. Okay, not only the locked doors, but by the all members, especially the Mrs. Kashikar, the other participant, even the witnesses, all are represented at the symbolic conservative society of the time. Banare may also be a symbol herself of the new modern Indian women emancipated from the grasp of the past, but that doesn't mean she has escaped the past. Okay, banner itself a symbol of the modern society. Modern society, they doesn't care. The modern society's member do not care about the social restriction principles and other. And in this way, Miss Benare becomes the symbol of the modern society. However, she tries to get rid of the past history of the society, but she couldn't do that. And finally, she surrendered to the conservative society and life without meaning. So Mrs. Kashikar is the submissive wife to a dominating husband, representing the strength of the patriarchy that has identified to the roles and place of a woman of a society. So Mrs. Kashikar, we see another female character in the drama, Mrs. Kashikar. Mrs. Kashikar is very much subservient to her husband. Mrs. Kashikar symbolically represent that women should be like Mrs. Kashikar, but not like Mrs. Benare. So in one portion, we see Mrs. Kashikar. She is the symbol of male dominance and admit the male dominating society. However, Lina Benare is just opposite. She wants to overcome the conservative rules of the society. And Benare ironically refers to her Mrs. Hand that rocks the cradle because she is childless. Child is another thing that Mrs. Kashikar was childless. And childless, but not lacking maternal instinct. Okay, and uh, and sparrow nest. Okay, at the Sparrow Nest, this is a symbolic song also. So Sparrow Nest is also a song featured in the play that tells the story about the conversation between a sparrow and a parrot. So sparrow and parrot, there was a conversation between these two kinds of birds. So sparrow was telling to parrot that, have you seen something else who has stolen my nest? But it was a crow. But the crow, so sparrow might be compared with uh, Lina Benare, and Parrot might be the society, and uh, Nest is the social system that is stolen by the male-dominated society, that is the crow. So Sparrow is sorrowful because it explains to the parrot and someone has stolen her nest. A bird's nest serves two functions, which take on symbolic significance. It is the safe place called home, as well as the site where eggs are laid and nurtured into the mox. So bird's nest should be the home, just like the society is the home for every human being. But in the very society, we should remain in protection. However, in the same society, the female counterpart are tortured by the male-dominated society and others, and even they don't admit that. Just like the Mr. Kashikar and the attorney and the other male members of the society, they didn't even admit that they have done something wrong. Okay, and the song becomes symbolic of the theft of the safety of her privacy, which Benare no longer enjoys, as well as indicative of the both the fictional charge against the defendant, infanticide, and the punishment of her sentencing for being found guilty in forced abortion. So the Mrs. Benare was found guilty, and she got punishment for his okay. So motherhood also, it has been claimed that the motherhood is sacred and pure, but motherhood exists only a concept, not a natural fact. Benedict is found guilty of violating rules of culture, religion, history, and pride of humanity on the basis of an offense which violates the sacredness and the purity of motherhood. She becomes a mother out of wedlock. So motherhood, this the very institution that motherhood is sacred and pure, that was violated by Lina Banare. In this scene, motherhood becomes not a symbol of that to which the characters attribute, rather a symbol of turning one thing into propaganda to maintain the status quo of another thing. Motherhood is exalted as something purer than heaven for the purpose of maintaining the institution of marriage, and the institution of marriage is maintained for the purpose of patriarchal dominance of women. So Vijoy Talukdar wanted to say that motherhood is sacred and pure. Such kind of idea is preserved in the society just to dominate the female counterpart of the society, as spoken by as shown by Vijoy Talukdar. And silence. Silence is another thing, that is the use of the exclamation point in the title is no more gimmick. The command to remain silent is pervasive throughout, starting with the title. And throughout, the judge cautions Benare to be silent when she interrupts testimony. So he waits the same power to silence his wife and when she begins to voice her opinion. So silence, the very title of the drama, indicate that women members or the female members of the society try to do or tell something progressive, tell something truth against the dominant part of the society, that is the male member. Always the patriarchal society tried to dominate the female counterpart with the such kind of word, that means silence. So women are not in a vocal mode. Always women are kept silent by the male dominating society. And we see some other metaphor and simile, that is hand that rocks the cradle. It is for Mrs. Kashikar. She didn't have any child, and for this reason, such kind of. And the prime objectives that the Benari has also reserved a metaphorical nickname for Mr. Kashikar. That is, he is Mr. Prime Objectives. Became his singular goal at all times is to exploit social for uplifting the messages. So prime objective, Mr. Kashikar and Mrs. Kashikar, they were childless. So Mr. Kashikar assumed himself as a social reformer, and for this reason, he always tried to uplift the common children of the society in this way. That means Mr. and Mrs. Kashikar, they had Kashikar, they had also desire for children in their own marital life. Okay. So it is also another. And Judge Kashikar, Mr. Kashikar served as the judge in the mock trial Banare. However, it is when he temporarily steps down from the role to step into the witness stand that he reveals his deep-seated comfort with the patriarchal status quo of male domination. Okay, so a question arises that in a society, male counterpart dominates the female counterpart of the society. So in such a indiscrimination between male and female, there should be some institution like court. The court will play equal ground both for male and female, but court at that time didn't play that role. So court always played a status quo, and court didn't intervene the male's domination over female in the society. So when he encapsulates in one of the place most memorable uses of metaphor, in his opinion of a woman, a sinful canker on the body of the society. That's my honest opinion of this grown-up unmarried girls. So Mr. Kashikar became the court of the society. So court system couldn't was not able to make the equal status for both male and female in the society. And Benner's nihilism, that is Benner's in the last stage of the drama, we see that Benari spoke many against the society and something else, and he reject all of religious and moral principles in the belief that life is meaningless. Okay, and she tells that life is a book that goes ripping into pieces. Life is a poisonous snake that bites itself. Life is a betrayal. Life is a fraud. Life is a drug. Life is a druggery. Life is a something that nothing, and nothing that's something. So in such a society, the progressiveness of women is progressiveness women is never been accepted by the male dominated society. So she tells of an incestuous relationship with an uncle and addresses various other difficulties faced and problems overcome before she reaches a state at which metaphorical language takes over the completely in a nihilistic philosophy of life uh, spews forth in a series of dark comparison. So from the very beginning of her life, Benare faced many problem in her life, and for this reason, she achieved a very negative notion about society, social principle, and others. And the crime beyond infanticide. So the criminal act here is especially given birth to and raising a child outside a marriage. The metaphorical description makes it sound infinitely worse. The cost has plotted to dynamite the very roots of our tradition, our pride in ourselves and our culture and our religion. So, and actually, the killing of a child, it is also a sin. But Benare is not. So, in one hand, their social institution will be demolished and destroyed. But if a child is killed, that is also one kind of sin. So one hand, killing a child is a sin, and in another hand, um, uh, marriage without uh, uh, be a mother without marriage is another sin. So we have also told that Shukatme carries out the prosecution of the dependent with obvious religious situation in the fact that he believes Benari to be guilty from the stats. Ironically, in addition to acting to the district attorney in the mock trial, he also takes on the role of the other defense attorney. So Shukatme at the same times played the both attorney, lawyer from the defendant and lawyer from the accused. So both in his role. So his conviction of the guilt of his silent is never questioned, as his defense strategy is primarily limited to asking that the court show mercy towards her. So in the last stage, he said that court shows mercy towards Mrs. Benary. The entire structure of the play is one steeped in irony. And what is taking place is supposed to be a mock trial involving fictional charge of an uncommitted crime against a character being portrayed by Lila Benare. So it is an irony. And fiction blurs with reality as Benare ironically finds her character and action actually being put on trial, with the judgment itself being an exercise in irony. So the incident is an irony, and the crime and the punishment. Okay, so when in a society crime will occur, so punishment will of course will be. So such kind the punishment doesn't go equally. Okay, even after agreeing the unfair casting decision made in her absence, Binare's request that the crime itself be changed to something less reprehensible is rejected. She will be a person on trial for the crime of killing a child. So Benari put, okay, so if Mrs. Benari kills the child, so she will be a person on the trial for the crime of killing a child. So, but the same code decides or give punishment that Miss Benari will kill the child. By the time mock trial has transformed into a real persecution, the sentence handed over becomes the play's greatest irony. And her punishment is the state uh, sponsored forcible abortion of the fetus growing in her womb. So the state itself orders to kill a child. That is also another sin. So that is also the irony of crime and punishment. So society and the states himself commits a crime by giving order to kill a child by Mrs. Benary. And the missing person, this is a disguise that Professor Damley, from the very beginning to the end, he was absent. So ironically, despite the complete absence from the entire proceeding, he manages to escape punishment. Okay, so this is the greatest irony of this drama, that Mrs. Benary is not only responsible for having extramarital physical relationship. So Professor Damley is as responsible as Lina Benary. So Lina Benary got punishment and the social hatred towards her. However, from the very beginning to the end, we didn't see Professor Damley, who has also equal share for committing such kind of grave crime in the society. But uh, he manages to escape punishment. So Professor Damley managed to escape the punishment from the very beginning of the scene. So the same crime done by both the male counterpart, Professor Damley, and done by Lina Benary. But Lina Benary got punishment, but Professor Damley didn't got punishment, and he escaped that punishment. And uh, imagery is there. Sparrow song has a imagery, and unseen and unheard rebuttal. Okay, you will read that. And the end scene, we will read that. The play ends with Benares' life on the floor, flowing her collapse upon hearing the sentence of punishment for her crime is court-ordered abortion. Shortly thereafter, the sound of the doors being opened to let in, and the audience and has arrived to watch the scheduled mock trial begins. The performers make an empty attempt to try to revive Benare, mostly by telling her it was all just a game. Then, in response to the arriving crowd, they had off stage to being preparing for their roles in the scheduled mock trial and leaving Benare completely alone as the Sparrow song plays over the speakers. So this is a imagery composed on the various level that speaks to the hypocrisy of the prime objectives of this group being to raise social awareness among the community, as well as the more obvious interpretation of women's place in Indian patriarchal society. So at the last stage, we see when Mrs. Benary was on the floor, that any member of the society didn't say anything to Benary. They simply say that it is a game. You shouldn't take it seriously. That indicates that the woman's place in the society, in a male dominated patriarchal society, that is presented by the final position of Lina Benary. Okay, so there are some. These are some topic we have to discuss, and so the theme of this drama, we see that the male domain. I'm looking for another.